I'll be working on a story and I'll be doing research, and Claude and I will be working together on something, and just two AI buds, just hanging out, doing our thing. And, I'll go off and I'll publish a story and I'll go back and I'll take a screenshot of the web traffic that it got, and I'll go, hey, look at what we did.
And how does it react?
Hey, that's great. Way to go. What are we going to do next? It's like for real. It's like a real relation. Okay, I feel like I'm going too far.
Is this the movie Her? Have you fallen in love with Claude?
Hi, and welcome to GeekWire. Wow, that was even better than rehearsal. It was so awesome. We are coming to you from the center of the universe. I am GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop.
And I'm GeekWire co-founder John Cook.
This is the center of the universe. It is Seattle's Fremont neighborhood, and we're here at Fremont Brewing Company for a special live recording of the GeekWire podcast. Our thanks to the Fremont Chamber of Commerce for making this live event possible. John, I'm already slurring my words, and I've only had 2 sips of this beer.
I told Todd, don't get the 6.6% beer. We should give a shout out to Fremont Brewing, our host here. Let's hear for Fremont Brewing. The beers are flowing, and one of the great breweries of the Seattle area.
Coming up later, we will have a special version of GeekWire Trivia, Fremont Edition, letting our listeners at home play along with the audience here in Fremont, who will have a chance to win some very sweet GeekWire swag. And we will also be joined by Pete Hanning, longtime business owner and executive director of the Fremont Chamber, to talk about what he's seeing in the neighborhood and in the tech community and what's really happening here in the center of the universe in Fremont. And John, I think it's worth noting that GeekWire is in its home right now. And actually not Fremont Brewing specifically.
Maybe I wish this was my home.
But Fremont has been GeekWire's home for going on 12, 13 years of the company's 15 years of existence. And the joke is, and actually it was somewhat a reality, John and I basically triangulated from our homes, mine in Ballard and John's in Greenwood, to decide on Fremont as the home of GeekWire. And we've got a wonderful converted cottage down on the waterfront overlooking the Burt Gilman and the Lake Washington Ship Canal.
It's very Seattle. It's a former coffee shop, so we feel like we fit right in.
Yes. So we really love this place, and it is really a joy to be here, and we're grateful to the Fremont Chamber. And GeekWire, by the way, is a member of the Fremont Chamber. We're represented on the board by Holly Grambler, our Chief Sales and Marketing Officer at GeekWire, who is... That's right. Other shout outs to the GeekWire celebrities in the room: Curt Schlosser, Taylor Soper, his dog Ichi, Jessica Reeves, Curt Milton, our podcast producer whose name you hear on the show,
Maya Doan,
Sean Dolans, lots of great members of the GeekWire team. Did I miss anybody, Holly? No. All right. So thanks to the entire GeekWire team for being here. So let's jump in with the news of the week. John, what did you think of that game on Sunday?
Beat down. Loved it.
Yes.
I like the parade even better, though. I had such a blast at the parade.
So, John, I don't know if you noticed the shirt that I'm wearing. I got this in the neighborhood. It is the Seahawks Super Bowl champion shirt. And as I was putting this shirt on this morning, I was thinking to myself, you know, it's already feeling a little bit old. It's already feeling a little bit like that's in the past. And GeekWire is not about the past. GeekWire is about the future. And so, like at any live event, I feel that it's only appropriate that you have a wardrobe change right off the top. Kind of like a Sabrina Carpenter, you know, Taylor Swift kind of move. So with that, here's my wardrobe change, because this is going to be the future championship in Seattle. Are you ready for this, everybody? I hope this gets a big cheer.
Ooh, this looks cool. This looks new. Oh.
Tell everybody what I'm doing.
Okay, Todd is putting on a Seattle Supersonics shirt and shorts even. Oh my gosh, Todd. That's going over the top. I'm going to do a wardrobe change too, since you prompted me here. I'm going to put my old school Seattle Seahawks cap on that was signed by one of the Seahawks at the parade.
Too
this
much?
year. There we go. Now we're really geared up.
Is this too much?
It is a little too much, yes. Yeah.
Hey, if this is going to get him here, I will wear whatever it takes.
Gosh. Next year, dress as Squatch.
Squatch. Yes, exactly. So to me, though, looking back to the Seahawks, this really was a testament to the lineage of the tech community here in Seattle, because in many ways, that team would not exist, that game would not have happened, if not for the benefactor that stepped up to save the team many years ago, Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen. And I thought it was just a really amazing moment when the support of the community came through, and you really saw that lineage of the tech community come through.
Yeah, and in fact, I just learned here in the audience, we have the former CFO at First and Goal who worked directly with that organization. So we have some of that lineage here right now.
Yes. So it got me to thinking as well, John, on sort of where things are headed from here. We have these moments where there's going to be a potential sale of the Seahawks. We know that there's going to be a sale of the Seahawks. We would hope that coming up soon, there's going to be an ownership group for the Sonics that's going to be coming in. And so I wanted to ask you, and perhaps we can even get some audience participation on this. And Curt Schlosser on our team wrote a story about the Seahawks in particular. Like, if you could put together your dream team of owners for the Seahawks in particular to come in and do this and carry this team forward, who would it be? And in particular, would there be any tech executives that you would want to put on that ownership group?
Yeah, great question, Todd. Do we have enough billionaires to do both the Sonics and the Seahawks?
Probably not.
We probably do, actually. A lot of wealth generation here in the last 25 years.
I think it's going to depend, that the answer to that question is going to depend in part on what happens in Olympia over the next year or two, whether we still have the billionaires here.
That's right. The estate tax might drive them out. But let me start with a little bit of a controversial pick. I'm going to say...
Howard Schultz.
No, not Howard Schultz. I don't think that's going to fly. I'm going to say Lauren Sanchez. Lauren Sanchez is the new wife of Jeff Bezos. And she, as I've heard, is a big football fan.
Okay.
Do you think this is possible? Or do you think Jeff Bezos is done with Seattle?
I think it's possible. You know my theory on Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez and sports ownership.
I don't.
I think that if they were to buy a team, and I understand Lauren Sanchez has a history in football. Was her previous husband of Tony
Correct.
Gonzalez
Yes.
a football player? Yes. So, however, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez seem to me like the kind of people who would not want to be hidden up in a luxury box at a football stadium. They would want to be walking down the baseline and the sideline of an NBA game like celebrities.
So you're thinking more Sonics opportunity?
Of the two, I think that would be more likely.
Okay. Well, that was my controversial pick. Who do you have in mind?
So I've got a couple picks. One, I enjoy listening to Amy Hood, Microsoft's CFO, on the Microsoft earnings calls. And so I could see where you might get a combo, like a really smart CFO from Microsoft and a really smart CFO from Amazon, Brian Olsavsky, like a combo of them coming in, at least as part of an ownership group.
CFOs are too conservative and they're too smart with their money, so they're not going to buy the team.
I know somebody in the audience who would probably argue with you on that.
Am I right or not? No, okay. No, I'm not right. Okay. So two CFOs of two prominent companies are going to come together and buy the team.
That's one of my
or
thoughts.
Partner with somebody
Yes.
to buy the team.
However, I will tell you, especially in terms of the Seahawks, my dream acquirer would be Jim Sinegal. Does anybody know who Jim Sinegal is? Jim Sinegal is the former CEO of Costco.
He's also 90 years old. So.
Hey, come on, he can do it.
Okay.
Go with me on this. I mean, really, what does football need if not $1.50 hot dog and Coke? I mean, come on, that's exactly what we need. for the Seahawks. It would be a hit. It would be like bigger than the Savannah Bananas.
Yeah. Well, I'll toss out a few other names. Obviously, I think Steve Ballmer would come to mind, with owner of the LA Clippers. I don't know if you have thoughts on the possibility there.
I think it's unlikely. I think
One sports team is enough?
I think one sports team is enough. I think Steve Ballmer's family has probably given him about as much rope as he can have in terms of the time he spends on the Clippers. I think he's gotten all of the leeway he has to buy sports teams. He would be perfect for either not the Sonics obviously, but he would be perfect for the Seahawks in many ways. I just don't think it would happen, at least not in a leadership position. Keep going. I'll shoot down everybody.
Rich Barton, former CEO of Zillow.
I like that. Yes.
Oh, we're hearing some
more.
applause actually
Yes.
on Rich. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
is a big Seahawks fan. Still lives in the city. Young, energetic. Probably would need some partners. I don't think he could do it all on his own. The value of the team is $5 to $8 billion, maybe, if I've heard.
You just gave me a great idea.
Yeah.
Why not Rich Barton and Glenn Kelman?
Oh my
Redfin?
gosh! Finally, bring them together. Yes, yes. Redfin and Zillow reunited.
With Glenn Kelman leaving Redfin, Glenn is one of the more charismatic folks out there. We've always appreciated covering
He's
him.
not a football guy.
That's why I like it even
Yeah.
more.
Yes. I don't think so. Anyone else on your short list?
Those are my big ones. I really like thinking about the Sonics most of all.
Okay. Who are we missing? Audience members. Anybody come to mind?
Mackenzie Scott.
Okay, that was Mackenzie Scott.
Mackenzie Scott, says Curt from
I think
the peanut
she's
gallery.
pretty low profile, and an NFL owner is pretty high profile.
Curt, did you bring this up in your story? The possibility of Mackenzie Scott and Melinda French Gates teaming up? Female leadership. Okay, that's a popular
Well, it's
choice.
interesting. I mean, of these names, about half of them are women, which is interesting.
Yes.
Maybe it'll just be some boring private equity firm. Yeah. So that's what you get. If you can't come up with any other ideas, that's what you get.
Yes.
No, it was an awesome week, and I mentioned being at the parade with 850,000 Seattleites, and to me, and maybe this will segue into some of our other discussions, but to me, I was just really proud to be a Seattleite. Beautiful day, awesome energy in the city. The vibe was just great, and I think if we can ride that momentum and build on that for the next year, 2 years, 3, 5 years, we've got a great thing here. I love being in Seattle, and I think we were shining at our best during that parade.
Yes, during the parade. When the players were up at the mic, can I go here?
Oh gosh, yes.
Okay. Why do they have to swear up there? Am I that old and that?
Yes, you are that old.
Like there's kids in the audience. Why do they have to swear? And I posted that in our internal Slack. And do you know what John Cook said to me in our internal Slack? You, Todd.
That wasn't the direct quote. It was actually, you, go Hawks.
Here I am now complaining about the profanity
That's
of the
right.
Seahawks and bringing it to our podcast.
That's right.
But to your point, John, I think this is a time in our world, in our community, when things like sports can really galvanize the community. And, we've seen in our startup world in particular a lot of hand-wringing and nervousness over things that are happening in Olympia. And we had a guest post this past week. I don't know how many folks saw it, but this was a guest post by angel investor Charles Fitzgerald. And the headline was, "A warning to Seattle, don't become the next Cleveland." And I got to tell you, if you ever want to get some attention from Northeast Ohio, put that kind of headline on your technology news website.
And being a person from Northeast Ohio, guess who came up with the headline?
John Cook.
I like to be a little provocative.
So here's the backstory. So John grew up in a small town called Worcester, Ohio, and I don't know how many folks know this about John, but he's been a newspaper reporter, and his brother Dave can attest to this, having grown up with him, obviously, who's here in the audience. John's been a newspaper reporter since he was a teenager. He got his start as a stringer for the Akron Beacon Journal, where his mom, Sally, was a reporter.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
she covered Wayne County, and Akron is the county seat.
Yeah, so just
in a way.
about 50 miles south of Cleveland. And if you go there, you got to say what my first job was.
Yes.
Which was calling the funeral homes and asking who died that day so I could complete the list and get that transmitted to the newspaper. So I was on death watch. And owners of funeral homes have a very interesting sense of humor. I will say that.
So our joke back in the day when all the hell was breaking loose in the startup world, especially in the dot-com bust and everything, was that John went from covering dead people in his early days of journalism to covering dead companies later on. However, all of that is to say, go ahead.
No, I was like, okay, let's get
to the point here.
Yeah.
John grew up 1 hour south of Cleveland, Ohio. And the point that Charles Fitzgerald was making was not so much about the Cleveland of today. It was really about the Cleveland of the 1950s, which in its time was in a very similar position in terms of being on top of the world that we, in many ways, feel like we're in Seattle today. And it was in some ways a cautionary tale. And John, you read the piece, you loved it, and you suggested that headline.
And then, interestingly, we got connected to the mayor of Cleveland, who actually had some responses to our piece, which I thought was really interesting.
So I'm going to write about this on GeekWire tomorrow, but I actually ended up on a phone call today with Charles Fitzgerald, who wrote that column for GeekWire, and Mayor Justin Bibb of Cleveland, who is extremely impressive and sharp. And both Charles and I got off the call afterward and basically said, wow, if only we could have this guy advocating for Seattle in the way that he's advocating for Cleveland. 38 years old, just an extremely sharp leader of that city. And he really made some good points in their defense.
And I think the cautionary tale and why we're writing about this anyway is because there is a bit of angst right now in the technology community. We're seeing this with a lot of layoffs. We're seeing this with regulations in Olympia. We're seeing maybe some backpedaling for what the technology industry means to a city like Seattle. And it's a story that we're diving into and investigating on a deeper level at GeekWire, especially as we look at things like the transformation that's coming with AI and what that's going to mean to the economy, and whether Seattle is well positioned for the next generation of technology that's coming our way. A lot of people are arguing we are not, and we're getting left behind. To me, that seems a little bit of a radical view. In the interview that you had with Mayor Bibb, he still admitted, I would much rather have the problems that Seattle has than what we have here in Cleveland. Cleveland went from, I think, about the number 7 city in population in the 50s and 60s to now 56th in population today. And that's a dramatic decline in your population that affects your economy in a tremendous ways. And you mentioned my brother Dave and I grew up in that environment through the 70s and 80s and 90s, and we saw it firsthand with companies like Rubbermaid, which was a very well-respected company in our hometown, headquartered there, that pulled out and essentially shut down all their manufacturing, shut down their headquarters, and now has no presence there. So it can happen. The blessings that we have here in Seattle with these amazing companies that call Seattle home across the technology industry, it's not a guarantee. And I think that was the point of Charles Fitzgerald's commentary in GeekWire, was we just can't take this for granted. We continuously have to invest in what we're doing and look at the future and think creatively and in a smart way about how we're positioning our community for the future.
You listened to that interview with Mayor Bibb. I'm curious, John, having grown up in Ohio, how much of that did you buy? Did you believe? How much of that was PR spin by the mayor of this Northeast Ohio city? Was what he was telling me about the future of Cleveland on the mark?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's fallen so hard in the last 30, 40 years that, it's kind of at rock bottom. Once you hit that point, you can start to build back up. And I think Cleveland does have some pretty interesting infrastructure. It has a really strong university in Case Western Reserve. It has a really strong medical and health industry and business with the Cleveland Clinic. And they're building on those strengths. And because it had hit such rock bottom with the bottom falling out of the housing market, and myself, I'm part of that drain of people that have left Northeast Ohio. Once you hit that base layer, then you can start to rebuild. And I think that's what Mayor Bibb's point was, is we've hit that point. We are absolutely building back, and we have some strengths that we're gonna capitalize on to take advantage. And at one point during that interview, he said, watch out, coastal cities. We're gonna come eat your lunch.
And Charles Fitzgerald's point is much better to recognize now that is a potential and take the steps to ensure that Seattle and Washington State and Bellevue and everywhere else around here don't face that. Although that is an interesting point that comes up when you talk about the regionalism and the definition of Seattle. I mean, we grapple with this sometimes even in just how to define it in our coverage. We've seen just in the past week, and Taylor Soper, GeekWire's editor, had the scoop on OpenAI opening an office in Bellevue. And then just this past week too, there was the report that xAI is opening an office in Bellevue. You've kind of got this really interesting AI corridor happening in Bellevue. And I guess the question becomes, if Seattle proper doesn't reflect the tech boom, is the region as a whole going to suffer? And what happens to those kinds of trends if it is just the east side and not Seattle?
Yeah, I don't really think about that as much. I think about us as more of a region than Bellevue versus Seattle, and the strength of Bellevue is the strength of Seattle. And there is an amazing infrastructure of companies that are based in Seattle as well. So I think the two work hand in hand, and there's strength in those two cities working together.
And we should give a shout out to one of the companies here in the audience. The co-founders of Gemateg are here, and they are a company that works on thermal management for chips in data centers. I've written about them in the past. And as a counterexample, they moved their headquarters from Bellevue last year to Fremont.
Woo! Welcome to Fremont. Thanks for joining us.
And I think that's actually a perfect segue. Why don't we bring up Pete Hanning, the executive director of the Fremont Chamber of Commerce. And we'll just take a quick beat here at the live audience, and then we'll bring Pete back. We'll speak with Pete when we come back. You're listening to GeekWire, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. It's Todd Bishop with John Cook. We are recording the GeekWire podcast live on location at Fremont Brewing. And we are joined now by Pete Hanning. He is the executive director of the Fremont Chamber of Commerce. He's been doing that since June 2022?
Correct.
Yes. And Pete is the kind of guy who will see a cartoon in the New Yorker that he thinks will resonate with someone, and he'll clip it out and he'll send it to you in the mail. And I know this because Pete has done this to me. And I have this cartoon. I brought this up at events before, but I had to do it here, Pete. I have this cartoon that Pete sent me last year from the New Yorker, and it reads, AI, and it's a tube of toothpaste. AI, all the hard-won knowledge and wisdom of humanity, now in a convenient, squeezable paste. So with that, John, I'll turn it over to you, and you can take it from here.
Pete, I've spent almost 30 years in Fremont. And when I first moved to Seattle, this was the neighborhood. I didn't settle in as a resident, but my first job was just alongside the Fremont Bridge, which I think was the former headquarters of Susie Burke's lumber company. And we sat right there on the Fremont Bridge. The structure's no longer there. So I've seen this neighborhood really transform in 30 years, but it still kept this nugget of quirk. I always call it quirkiness, fun, artsy. And I'm curious how you think about this neighborhood as the transformation has happened across the city and specifically in this neighborhood as tech and business has moved in, and how you've been able to retain and manage that balance.
Well, that building that you were in was super cool because I was in it a couple times, and it was
amazing.
It was like a 5-story building because it started at the base of the Fremont Bridge and then went above it, above the ground floor. I grew up in Fremont, and so this community, there's a real love affair that I have with it. And so there is bias, I recognize that. But I also recognize Fremont is special. We just have something that is different than other communities. There's an authenticity to us that I think certain neighborhoods strive for, but it doesn't always come through. You know, I was speaking with someone earlier today, and we were talking about kind of what Microsoft and Redmond has tried to do to create a little more culture around their headquarters. Well, that was already in place here in Fremont when, you know, the first tech company that I remember coming into Fremont was Getty Images. And I still have a lot of good friends who worked there. You know, I was bartending at the original Red Door at the time in the 90s. And so, you know, we've evolved with it. But you know, to see how the tech companies, when they come into Fremont, really embrace it, from Adobe and Tableau, who then Salesforce joining with them and has really grown. Path moving into Fremont has been really incredible. It's got a special little bit of quirkiness to it. You know, there's not a lot of neighborhoods that have such a strong tech corridor, and yet you could walk out your office and you have choices of where you're going to get your tattoo that afternoon. You know, so we have some of that funkiness, and the other piece is this neighborhood doesn't just shut down at 5 p.m. You know, there is plenty of activities and cultural events happening all the time here on the weekends and in the evenings. So it really has some lively kind of energy to it. And the tech companies are really an important part of it. You know, many of you know about the Solstice Parade and the Fremont Fair. So the Fremont Fair is put on by the Fremont Chamber, and the Solstice Parade is put on by the Arts Council. But before the parade starts, we all know that a couple thousand naked, painted cyclists come through our neighborhood.
Have you ever done that, Pete? Let's be honest. Have you ever ridden naked at a fair?
I have not, partly because
2026 is the year, I think.
For 20-some years, I was at the Red Door early getting ready to have my busiest day of the year, and so I was always working. So no, I have not ridden in it.
Good excuse.
Yeah. But just having like a neighborhood where there's a Lenin statue and there's this creative kind of craziness and zaniness, I think kind of is freeing for some of the tech companies that are here. It allows them to kind of really be in a cool neighborhood.
And how do you balance the demands of that kind of quirky, artsy side of Fremont with the energy of the tech companies? Because they sometimes can be different beasts in many ways.
You know, I don't think any few people could do that balancing. You just really hope that you're always building the stool to make sure that all the legs kind of have some health to them and some girth to them, so that one sector isn't just overweighing the others. And I do think that there's a certain amount of scale here in Fremont that actually feels a little more approachable and livable, even within those tech companies. It's not just this huge corridor and nothing else going on. There's lots of other things that you could be doing in Fremont and not be engaged with technology at all.
Pete, I'm curious what you're seeing from your role as someone working on economic development effectively in many ways in Fremont in terms of the health of the tech sector. Are there things that you see in particular when you're making the pitch to tech companies to come here and be headquartered here that kind of give you a sense for the barometer for the health of the tech industry, and what kinds of trends are you seeing in terms of growth and vitality or contraction in the tech sector?
A couple of years ago, I was talking with a vice president, someone pretty high up at Salesforce. And they were talking about, so Salesforce is at the Data One building, which is an amazing building developed by Mark Gray and his team at Stephen Gray and Associates. And they were sharing with me that they track all their RTO. RTO is return to office numbers across their whole suite of campuses on the West Coast. And they had 12 at that time. And that besides their San Jose headquarters, the Fremont offices had the highest rate of RTO across all of them. And similarly, the Google campus saw higher numbers than anywhere else in the Pacific Northwest. And so what that tells you is people want to actually come to work. When they like coming to Fremont. And that is just the most powerful thing. It's not only powerful for tech companies who want to put their headquarters here, but part of what I'm so focused on is then I want to get that information out to the small retail spaces. I want small businesses to move here as well, and that there are people here, and so that commerce piece, that day-to-day getting to know your baristas, getting to know your massage therapist and acupuncturist, and the small pet food store, and the bookstores, and the tattoo parlors, like they're all really important in this.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I think the comparison you were making to Microsoft's efforts to kind of manufacture that at places like their Commons on the West Campus or the new East Campus, it's like it doesn't feel quite as authentic as the place that's been around for decades and hundreds of years. But at the same time, Fremont is also a microcosm of the larger trends in tech. You mentioned Salesforce, Tableau. They have contracted here. I know there's some questions about whether, Google will be here long term. Like in some ways, you're kind of feeling the effects of the ebb and flow of the larger tech industry.
Sure, but I don't think it's unique to Fremont. One of the things is, at least at the chamber, at the board level, we acknowledge the issues that we're dealing with in our community are the same as other communities are dealing with. The issues are serious, but it doesn't mean that we have to take ourselves so serious. And so events like this, we have a little more fun in our business community at the chamber level. We work really well with the Arts Council and the Neighborhood Council. We want to have that kind of spirit, right? And that the chamber doesn't have to lead on everything. The tech companies don't have to lead on everything. And so there's, you just kind of, if everything's healthy, then someone's going to step up and kind of help there. And yes, there's going to be contraction, but I do know that our occupancy rates are way better here in Fremont for some of those office spaces that tech companies are looking for than, say, downtown.
So bigger picture, we just had a conversation, Cleveland, Seattle. How do you think Seattle is positioned for the next generation of business and economic development?
I do think that we're in a kind of a change of the tide. It's similar to a tide rolls in or rolls back out, but when it rolls back in, sometimes it goes higher up the beach and sometimes it goes a little lower up the beach. So I don't know where we're at on that, but Seattle has so many incredible things going for it, and Fremont in particular just has such a strong foundation. And one of the reasons it has such great strength is we also have this ship canal that has, a couple $2 billion worth of maritime activity that is going up and down its waterways every year. We have Western Tugboat, who is making tugboats right here in our community, and ASCO Processing, who's making actual components for Boeing airplanes in Fremont. So we're not just tethered to technology as our only business. Across the street is Brooks Tennis Shoes. Now, of course, they use a lot of technology in that, but they're a health and wellness business. They sell shoes, and they've been expanding. They just took over another building here in Fremont. And so I think for the most part, its future is bright.
Pete, the other thing that you have, and you're alluding to this a little bit, but you have the strength of this community and the longevity of many of the key players who've been around here for many years, some of whom actually made this event possible tonight. I mean, you really have just this nucleus here in Fremont that I think, to the point of what we were talking about with Cleveland's mayor, I mean, many of the things that are happening in Seattle, places like that would be very happy to have. And so I want you to speak to that.
If you look at some of the statistics from like Visit Seattle, like some of the top sites to be visited in the city, the Fremont Troll is way up there. Now, there's a chamber member, Weber Thompson. They're an architectural firm. They developed the Watershed building and the Data One building. They're also the ones who helped develop those runnels and bioswales that are catching all that hard, dirty, polluted water coming off the Aurora Bridge, the George Washington Memorial Bridge, as it's officially known as. And their address, so that street was, I remember Mayor Nichols came out there, we got it named Troll Ave. So now their address for that building, it is a state-of-the-art green building one of the best architectural firms on the West Coast, is on Troll Avenue. And so it's that funkiness and that fun, can be really placed in there. I'm really excited by that. So Fremont Chamber's been around over 40 years. And we still have a board member who is one of the founding members, and that's Susie Burke. And she and her family have been instrumental in the growth of this community in so many incredible ways, really supporting small businesses and making sure there's a really healthy mix. They were the first ones that provided office space to Getty Images way back when. So the first, tech company came in. And so we've been really fortunate that we have strong foundation. And I want to just turn back a little to the Seahawks. Couple things. So our new coach, Mike McDonald, he was getting interviewed and he was talking about his philosophy of having old school fundamentals with new school technology, right? And I think Fremont, we have these like really solid principles and foundational pieces, and yet we are not afraid of change and growth because that's inevitable, and you really do have to really want that, or you backslide. And Cleveland, I think, backslid so far that they're really struggling to get back. They'll get back to a certain better point, but Fremont's really doing well. So the Seahawks, I have had a love affair with that team since I was a little kid. And I've had season tickets now for 28 years. And I have seen games in Cleveland. I've seen games all over. I went to the '05 Super Bowl. I had a huge tailgate that I participated in. But the most impactful thing, and the reason why I'm the biggest fan, so my father, the Reverend Stephen Hanning, was a minister. And his first church in Renton, the first thing he did is he moved the church service up an hour earlier because he and my stepbrother and I had season tickets the first 2 years to the Seahawks.
Wow.
And he was a senior minister giving sermons, and he realized it was one of the biggest pains in his life. He gave up the season tickets because he realized that it was in such conflict with his real job, his Sunday job. And so then years later, I went into hospitality, mostly in nightlife and bars, but early on I was interviewing for a job, and the person said, "Are there any days you can't work?" And I was, of course, I knew the answer is, absolutely not. I'll work any day you need. Like, I want this job. I said, absolutely not. I could work any day you want, but I do need to let you know that my father's a minister and that Sunday is a really big family day. What was not mentioned was I don't hang out with my dad on Sundays. I didn't go to church. I was watching football. And I was the only new hire that didn't get put on the Sunday shift, which was the worst shift. And so the Seahawks have provided me so much joy that I am over the moon. I also was at the parade yesterday, and it was magical.
All right, Pete Hanning, everybody.
Coming up next on our live show from Fremont, Tech Trivia. Stay tuned.
All right, the time has come. I know all of you have been waiting for GeekWire trivia from the Fremont Brewery. So some of Pete's comments kind of gave away some of the answers. However, I came up with a mix of questions that combine some Fremont history, some Seattle tech history, a little bit of GeekWire history, and I want to tell you, I kept them from John. I did not tell John what the questions were, in part so he could participate. So this is going to be kind of a free-for-all. There's no score sheets or anything like that, but if you want to yell out as we go along, let's start with the Fremont Troll. The Fremont Troll is an 18-foot concrete sculpture under the Aurora Bridge, or the
George Washington Memorial Bridge.
George Washington Memorial Bridge. And it's one of Seattle's most photographed landmarks. What is the troll clutching in its left hand? What was that?
I heard it from this person first.
A beetle. So that's our first winner of GeekWire swag. The tech angle here is, I don't know how many of you know this, but the car has a California license plate. Did anybody know that? I have to say, this is according to Perplexity, so I have not confirmed this in person. However, the car has a California license plate, which some say was a deliberate protest at the time against the influx of Californians to Seattle. This was back in 1990, and it was just as the tech industry was starting to rise in the region, sparked by the growth of Microsoft. Fun fact, installed in 1990, the troll is 4 years older than Amazon. The sculpture originally contained a time capsule inside the VW, including a plaster bust of Elvis Presley, but that bust and the time capsule were stolen when the car was vandalized at one point. Related question, Fremont is known as the center of the universe, but the neighborhood also has an unofficial motto in mock Latin. What is it, and what does it mean? There you go. That's right. Yes. So it's De Libertas Quercus, and I had it as the freedom to be peculiar, which leads to our next question, in fact. And congrats to you, very well done. What Seattle tech company also proudly uses the word peculiar to describe itself and its culture? I heard it back there. There's Amazon right there. That's right. Amazon uses peculiar as an internal badge of honor for employees who embrace its unconventional workplace culture and leadership principles. It's the company's way of celebrating the idea of overturning workplace conventions.
Todd, we got a pair of GeekWire socks going out to the audience.
So we talked about Amazon using the peculiar as its internal badge. So a related question, of course, Amazon isn't based in Fremont. However, what ill-fated Amazon product was introduced by Jeff Bezos himself during an event in Fremont in June 2014? What ill-fated Amazon product?
Was it their Fire phone?
Pete got it. It was the Fire phone. It was
Pete, you get a prize.
So it was the Fire phone. I was there, in fact. I witnessed the birth of the turd. It was so awesome. For many years, Amazon used Fremont Studios, the sort of sound stage and movie production studio space, for its special events, including its annual meeting. And so it was really cool. Like, literally, we were 3 blocks away. And so I would be able to go to the office, and I actually feel like I got some good scoops out of that. I was able to go back to the office and post from the annual meeting before any of the other reporters. Those were the days. Now it's all virtual. So, yes, in fact, it was the Fire phone, Amazon's first and only smartphone featuring 3D displays and dynamic perspective head tracking technology. Despite being bundled with a free year of Amazon Prime, it flopped. This next question is courtesy of GeekWire reporter Curt Schlosser. During the 2018 Fremont Solstice Parade, naked participants drew extra attention from GeekWire for putting their butts on what? Specifically, what were they riding? Not bikes is not good enough as an answer. That would be good. Not a photocopy machine.
What devices?
Yes, devices might be a good.
Yeah.
For anybody know?
It's a popular transportation.
Yes, Lime bikes.
Lime bikes, okay.
Yes, Rachel got that one. Yes. Yes, in fact, bike sharing bicycles from Lime, Spin, and others. That's right, in a story headline, Breaking Nudes, GeekWire reported on and shared photos of naked cyclists cruising through the center of the universe with not much more than a little body paint between them and the bike seats. That's courtesy of Curt.
What was the full headline?
Breaking Nudes. N-K-I-N-G, nudes, N-U-D-E-S. That is a classic Curt Schlosser headline, if I've ever seen one. I don't know how many folks know this, but Curt was for many years the page A1 editor at the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, the PI, the place with the neon globe on the waterfront that no longer lights up, where we all met. We talked earlier about Tableau. They established offices in Fremont in 2004, and of course the company still maintains a presence here following its acquisition by Salesforce in 2019. Where was Tableau actually started? We're getting into the advanced questions now. The troll was the gimme.
I I got it.
You got it? Okay.
I think so.
Go ahead, John. Stanford University.
Yeah.
That's right. That was Tableau. How about this? Many people know that Google has a long history in Fremont, but another Silicon Valley tech giant actually predated the Search King in the neighborhood. What is it? And bonus question, when did it move in? Adobe.
Yes.
All right. Got it. All right. Get that man some GeekWire swag. All right. We'll do one last question. Geocaching HQ. This is, I think, might be the toughest question on the list. Geocaching HQ, the company formerly known as Groundspeak, still has its headquarters in Fremont. What event in the year 2000 made the invention of geocaching possible? What event in the year 2000 made the invention of geocaching possible? Do you know this, John? It is a tough one.
What geocaching is. Yeah, okay. What event? What happened in 2000? Oh, Y2K?
No.
What else was happening in 2000?
This was no.
We got, you already won.
That's okay. Let's hear it.
This was hard to hear, but the answer from the audience was they turned off the switch that made satellite data less precise.
Nice. Wow. Okay. The answer was, just so for the podcast, the answer was they turned off the switch that made satellite locations less precise. Until May 2000, they were intentionally scrambling GPS signals for civilian users, the US was. And in May 2000, they made it so that you could go from within about 100 meters of a location to literally within a few meters. And that made it possible using existing GPS technology to actually locate a small geocache. I found that fascinating. All right, well with that, with my Cliff Clavin moment on
Todd,
geocaching.
great trivia. How did he do? I know we have some trivia masters here. Was that good trivia? Okay. Nice job, Todd. Congratulations.
All right, and with that, I think we'll go ahead and close out.
Do you want to close out, or does anyone have an audience question? Okay, here we go. Why don't you say your name and who you're with?
I'm Ellen Taylor, and I'm here with, I don't know, myself. A question as a person who just uses tech and AI as like an everyday person, right? What is the difference, and does it matter if I'm using ChatGPT versus Claude? We talked about the Super Bowl. Those Claude ads were amazing. I didn't even know I was looking for a new GPT service. Do you know what I mean? And I've switched. So for an everyday person, is there an AI preference that you guys have, and why?
Oh gosh.
Oh boy.
Was this a setup, Todd? Oh my God, this is perfect for Todd. This is perfect.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I am just enamored, probably too much so, with trying all of the different tools.
He is the guy to ask this question.
I love Perplexity right now. I really love Perplexity, and the thing that I like about the Perplexity Pro subscription, which you can get, by the way, for free if you like go through PayPal, or I forget if I think I got it through my Samsung device. You can get a full year of Perplexity Pro tip. And when you have that subscription, you can select different models. Like you can go from Claude to Gemini to inside Perplexity as your answer. But just that.
Because it crawls across the different engines?
Not only that, but I think it uses the different LLMs in the process of responding to your query using the trained Perplexity model. But to me, I really like Perplexity. I continually go back to Claude. And the reason is that it talks to me like I'm its friend, like its companion, like its colleague. And I go back to ChatGPT and I'm like, shut up, too much. I don't need to know all this. And then you go back to Claude and it's like, it's somebody who's just having a regular conversation with me. And it's to the extent that I'll be working on a story and I'll be doing research, and Claude and I will be working together on something, you know, and just two AI buds, just hanging out, doing our thing. And, you know, I'll go off and I'll publish a story and I'll go back and I'll take a screenshot of the web traffic that it got and I'll go, hey, look at what we did.
And how does it react?
Hey, that's great, way to go. What are we gonna do next? I mean, it's like for real. It's like a real relation. Okay, I feel like I'm
yeah,
going
yeah.
too far.
Is this the movie Her?
Is this the movie Her?
Yeah. Have you fallen in love with Claude? I mean, this is a great question for Todd, and I think there is so much more to unpack here, but I think the audience might like to hear a little bit more about how you're using AI in your reporting, because I mean, as a journalist, and I serve most of my time more on the business side now, but it is pretty fascinating. And maybe just at a high level, talk about this, because I think a lot of people go to this idea that, oh my gosh, AI is writing the stories for GeekWire. That is not the case. AI is a companion and a tool that's helping us get to information faster and a smarter way. But Todd, maybe just a high level on how you're using it.
What AI has done for me as a reporter is it has turned raw information from a burden into a boon. In the past, you would go out, you would do interviews, you would find websites, and all you were doing was adding to your workload, to the things that you would have to process. And so for me, I just have become this information vacuum, because I know that I've got this technology behind me that can process it and point to the specific things that are going to be valuable. And we talked a little bit about this on the podcast a few weeks ago, but when Elon Musk, in his lawsuit against OpenAI and Microsoft, had a bunch of disclosures, 200 and some odd PDFs that were disclosed in the lawsuit. In the past, I would have gone, oh my gosh, there goes my next week. I was able to download every PDF, put it into a Notebook LM, and say, give me the juiciest parts about Microsoft in these internal emails. And this is something that would have happened in the past, and we would have had a team of reporters at the PI upstairs for weeks pouring through this.
Todd said that story he produced in a weekend would have taken him at least how long?
I think
weeks.
3
to weeks, 4 weeks,
yes.
Down to hours.
Hours in my spare time over the weekend.
Well, I know, Todd, you can go on and on. This is a great question, great topic. We're going to stick around for a little bit later and talk.
Yes, go ahead, Pete. Go ahead.
So there was one piece that I really forgot to say about the Super Bowl, and then I So watching the Super Bowl, so you see, we're the Fremont Chamber of Commerce. We're a community chamber, but there were 3 companies that had ads that are members of our chamber on the Super Bowl. Google was one of them. Salesforce was another, and Brooks Tennis Shoes was another. That's powerful, you guys. But when I saw those 3 ads, and I was like, heck yeah, those are chamber members. So just wanted to make sure that that was mentioned.
Thanks, Pete. I think that ties into GeekWire's motto, which is what happens here matters everywhere. And I think that is a signal of that here we are within steps of these companies that are right at our fingertips. And they are massive companies that are advertising in the Super Bowl.
We did not even mention Brink drones. They were actually another subject of one of my trivia questions that I didn't get to. I could go on and on.
Well, if anyone wants to come up and hear Todd's remaining trivia questions, we have a couple prizes left.
Hey, a big thanks to everybody who was here tonight, and a big thanks to the Fremont Chamber and everybody who made this event possible. Curt Milton edited this episode. Until next time, I'm Todd Bishop.
And I'm John Cook.
We will talk to you next time on the GeekWire podcast. And I just want to say, Claude and I will be here all night.